All right. Good evening. Good evening. This is Dr. Stephanie McKenny. Welcome to Zoe Fellowship Bible College for Christian Counseling. And we are talking about matters. Family matters. We are using the Successful Family book by Dr. Creflo Dollar and Taffy Dollar. And so this particular section that we're going to be going over is talking a little bit about communication. All right. It deals with communication, and that is chapters 7 and 8. First chapter and 7, it says, "What did you say?" Okay. Talking a little bit about successful communication. And as you know, if you are married or have been married or have talked to other people that have been married or are married, that there are times that there is difficulty because there's not a healthy way to communicate, or the communication is at times not successful, or the communication, there's a barrier, or I don't, you hear people say, I don't know how to talk to her. I don't know how to talk to him. He doesn't listen. She doesn't hear me. All of those different things, right? Because a lot of times when people are married, there are certain things that come up that may cause some division. And so one of the things is, of course, communication. All right. So this particular chapter kind of breaks down the principles of successful communication. One of the things it talks about is the on page 83. Root causes of problems in marital relationships can be likened to a tree's root system. So he begins to share that communication is like a tree's root system. And I often think about also that it can be likened unto a garden. And you have to determine how you want your garden to grow, or how you want the roots of this tree to grow, right? And so it goes on, as the tree grows, so do the roots, which absorb water and minerals from the soil, enabling it to live and grow, as we know that trees do. It says hurt, anger, bitterness, and resentment are like tree-like emotions that thrive in many relationships. And so, even with this tree analogy, and as I say, a garden, you determine, and for those of you who may have a green thumb, right? You determine whether you're going to have a lovely garden with beautiful shrubbery or flowers, or you're going to have a weed patch, right? So you can think about that even in your marriage, or when you're dealing with people that are married or thinking about marriage, that they determine how this garden is going to grow. Everything is not going to be put on God. You know, some people say, well, God kept us together. That's great. God had a part in it all. But guess what? It takes the two of the people involved in that marriage to make this thing work. Faith without works is dead. It's not only in our relationship and our connection with God and what we're believing God for, but even in marriage. You can have faith, God can be in the center of it, but if the two people don't do the work, all right, you're going to have some issues. All right, so it talks about making sure that things are planted right. And so you determine how that plant or how that tree is going to grow. All right. So it says at the bottom, dig out the roots. Think back to the tree metaphor, as it says in the bottom part of 83. Just as a tree has many branches, so do hurt and pain in relationships. For example, one spouse may speak harsh words and hurt the other. The hurt gives birth to the branch of low self esteem, which then gives birth to other branches of anger and distrust. Okay, so one thing said may cause hurt feelings and all of those things. So sometimes there are things that have been planted in the relationship that need to be uprooted. Need to dig around the roots, as it says, or the cause of the problem. A lot of times we think about, I remember working at a high school, and a lot of times we look at the students, and some people will say, "Oh, that student is so bad. They're so bad. They're such a bad," just talking negatively about the child because of the child's behavior, right? But if you dig deep and you get to the core and you find out what's really happening, you may find that the child is behaving the way that he is because he don't get no food when he get home. Mom and dad are arguing all the time. There's abuse, there's neglect, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. So, the next time you see a child, you say they so bad, they so negative, they ain't no good, they ain't check the roots. Okay, check the roots. All right, so it's important for those that are getting married, those that are married, that effective communication is the ultimate tool used needed to uproot the causes of broken relationships. Okay, and so it talks about bridging the communication gap. The Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines communication as a process by which information is exchanged between individuals. Miscommunication occurs when both parties fail to exchange information clearly and effectively. Okay. So when you're working with those individuals that are married or thinking about getting married, you want to make sure that they are having successful communication, healthy communication. Some people do not know how to effectively communicate. And maybe y'all can go and look in your own experiences in your marriages or in your relationships and kind of look at how you communicate. How does your spouse communicate? Some people, they talk a lot, some are quiet, they don't say nothing, right? We're going to talk about the different styles of communication. And so when you are talking about communication, the key is you want to make sure that everyone involved has a clear understanding. You don't have understanding, you don't know how to move forward, you don't know how to change things. You got to get understanding, right? Wisdom is a principal thing. And all that getting what? Get understanding, right? So when people are communicating, they're not just communicating just to say something, they're trying to say something to get the understanding. Now, there is a communication skill called reflection, right? You're going to probably see that in that video that you're going to be assigned to. A reflection is basically this, because you want to get the understanding and you want to help this couple make sure that they know what their spouse is saying. So reflection works like this. One spouse may say one thing, right? I don't like it when you such and such and such and such, right? They go on and explain. The other person then begins to say, I hear you saying that you don't like it when I da 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 da, right? And so that gives the person that is explaining to them what they do not like the opportunity to say, that's correct. Or to say, no, that's not what I meant. Because, sometimes you get in conversations with people or you get in conversations with your spouse, and you may say one thing, but they heard another, right? They heard something else. And so reflection helps to get the understanding of what the other individual is saying. All right. So you may want to use that and share that with those couples that you will be counseling, that you will be talking to. I heard you say this. Is that correct? Simple as that. You're really just repeating what you thought you heard. Okay. Page 85, the missing link. It says, try this experiment. Take a sheet of paper and write down the following sentence without showing it to anyone. The sentence says, "You have the most unbelievable eyes I have ever seen," right? And then it said, strike through every other word. Now read the sentence out loud to your spouse. Did he or she understand what you were trying to say? Probably not. Take turns performing this exercise, keeping in mind the importance of communication. All right. So he gave you a little example that maybe you can use with the couples trying to get understanding. Okay. It's so important. Page 86. Stop talking and start listening. All right. There's another communication style, active listening. Some people say, well, I do listen. Sometimes people do not listen. Sometimes they are hearing what the person is saying, but they're thinking about the next thing that they are going to say to respond to the person. That's not active listening. Okay. Because you listening partly and you try to figure out, you heard one or two words, and then now you're going to jump and say, well, da 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 da, right? Because you heard two words out of the whole entire three sentences that the spouse said, right? So you have to be an active listener and be able to sit still and listen to what the person is saying. Oftentimes, when even I'm counseling couples, I tell them, listen to the heart of your spouse. What are they saying? I know it's a rah, 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 but what is at the core, at the root? What are they saying? And you got to listen clearly in order to obtain that. All right. So it says no behavior, page 86. No behavior is more self-centered than when you demand to speak and refuse to listen. This is the root cause of most conflicts between spouses. In fact, it is a violation of a biblical principle. Oh, wow. Let every man or woman be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. The Amplified says that we should be ready listeners, swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Boy, that would stop a whole lot of arguments. If we were swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, right? So, and even in your own experiences, you can begin to elaborate to help other couples. But when you are counseling them, try not to make your personal situations become their situation. Okay. It's okay every now and then. And they tell us, even in therapy, really, not to disclose about your information. Okay. You're not there to tell them about your marriage, you're there to help them. And there may be something that may be similar to what they have experienced. And so sometimes you may bring it up. And I'll use an example. When I'm dealing with individuals that have lost a child, in the counseling session, I will disclose, if I feel led, I will disclose that I have lost a child also, so I can relate to what you are feeling and experiencing, right? So you might do some disclosures, you may not, right? Depending upon if you feel led to, and if you feel it's going to be beneficial for the session, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so moving on down, he says, most importantly, you learn what truly makes your spouse happy. There is a saying that bears repeating: happy wife, happy life. Happy wife, happy life. Let me say that again. All right, so this also proves true with a happy husband. Ladies, when your husband is confident that he can openly express his hurts and most intimate thoughts to you without ridicule and rebuke, he will be a happy man. Okay? It's good to have a happy wife, but it's good to have a happy man. Okay? The head over your house is good. when he's happy, right? So when he opens up, this is good to share with those that you will counsel and talking to the women. You're going to have to listen to that man and respect. And when he opens up, give him your undivided attention. Because when you do not, and I repeat, when you do not, there will come a time where he will close up and it'll take a little while. It's going to take a while for him to open up again. It's almost like a flower. I remember my husband gave an example. It's almost like a rose. You know how a rose, sometimes it can open up and it's so pretty. It's so beautiful, right? And that's how sometimes a man's heart, he may open up. But if you, I don't want to hear that now. And or you don't take allow what he's saying to be valuable to you, that flower will close right on up. And it'll take you a long time to get that flower back open. All right. So, all right, that's a side note. Happy wife, happy life. A happy husband is a happy life too. Happy household, right? Okay, so let's move on. All right, let's move on. Hold on. Okay, so that's important for us to realize that. Here it says, page 87, build up, don't tear down, right? Train yourself to build up your spouse daily. Develop a list of 30 positive things you can say to encourage him or her every day for the next 30 days, okay? And so it's using this example of how you can begin to share it with those that you are counseling concerning marriage, that, hey, create, this is an activity that they can do, that you can send them home with. Listen, for the next 30 days, I want you to build your spouse up. I want you to encourage them. I want you to say some positive things, and begin to encourage them, right? And then you will find that there will be a change in that relationship. So that may be an activity that you can encourage them to build their spouse up and not to tear them down. Because you can also tell them that tearing them down, you can see the results that you're having. And so let's change it. Let's get them to speak more positive and cause them to change the atmosphere in their home. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to page 88. And then it talks about 4 basic principles of proper listening. Remember, we talked about active listening. It's important for us to get to the point that we actively listen. Okay. And this is what you want to share with those that are going to either getting married or they're married now, that they want to actively listen. They don't want to just hear a little bit and start thinking about what they're going to say next. That's not active listening. Okay. So listening intentionally, as it says, setting a specific time when you and your spouse can talk. So you want to encourage them. Listen, get a set time when the two of you can get together and you can talk about what it is, the situation, whatever the disagreement that has taken place, and do it without distraction. You know, some couples, they sit and they talk and the TV is on. Somebody got the remote in their hand, and now this time of day, we got these phones. The phone is going, and we got it on the table, and we kind of going like this and trying to act like you listening to your, that's not active listening. That's not listening intentionally. So you have to tell people, listen, no social media, no TV, go someplace, set a place so that you can listen intentionally. Then it says listening attentively. The type of listening is done by eliminating distractions. Okay. Again, being attentive, giving your spouse, the significant other, their undivided attention. Okay. And so you want to encourage that even when you are counseling these couples and they're coming to you about communication, because that's what we're talking about in these 2 chapters. And so you want to make sure that they are setting aside a specific time and they're doing it without distraction, right? Listening understandingly. Okay. That goes back what I talked about, the reflection. right? Getting the understanding. And all thy getting what? Get understanding. And that's what you want. You want the couple to get the understanding of the need, of the root cause, so that they can work towards the solution. Okay. It's not always good to talk about the problem. And it talks about this in one of the chapters, I think the next chapter, but it talks about how some couples, they focus on the problem, the problem, the problem, the problem. Okay. We know what the problem is. What can we do to solve this situation? Okay. And so you want to get those individuals to a place of solution. Okay. Solution, resolution. That's why we even talk about in therapy, one of the theories is solution focused. Okay. Solution focused therapy. All right. Because you're trying to get them to a main goal specifically. Okay. Let's see. Skillful learning, listening actively, page 89. The last principle involves quickly acting upon what your husband or wife shares with you. Okay. So when they begin to share these things they're concerned about, and the spouse understands, and now you want to listen actively, meaning that you are going to do what is necessary to make the change. Okay. And so that's what you want. You want to get them to the point where they move towards the change. Okay. All right. So 90, we're going to wrap this page, this chapter. We're going to move to the next one really quickly. Page 90 says communication do's and don'ts. Don't make the word of God. What? No, I said don't. Oh, that's not right. Scratch that. Do make. Make sure you make the word of God your final authority. I repeat, do make the word of God your final authority. Let God's word kind of guide you and direct you in regards to what you should do and make. Go back to the book, right? Do speak words of encouragement. Do communicate exactly what you feel, truthfully and with love. You want them to be authentic. You want them to be truthful in what they are feeling when they are with their spouse. Okay. Do respect your spouse's opinions and thoughts and carefully consider his or her responses. Do your part to establish peace in the home. Yes, that might be a question you need to ask them. How can we establish peace in this home? What would it take? What do you all think it would take to establish peace in the home? And see, you can ask that with those people that you're counseling. What do you guys think would establish? I know they come to see you, but you can pose the question back to them, because sometimes people can come up with, they got to begin to identify what works for them. They have to begin to identify what will bring peace for them, because you can't tell them, well, I think peace will bring if you do this, but that may not be something they enjoy or that brings them peace. So it's okay to return the question back to them. What do you think would bring peace to your home? Okay. Do forgive and forget. Do listen intentionally, attentively, understandingly, and actively. Now it says, don't go to bed angry. Okay, some people do go to bed angry. Be angry, but sin not. The scripture does say it, right? Don't allow anger or unforgiveness to fester. Don't walk away from your spouse in the middle of your discussion. Oh, how so many people may do that, right? I don't want to hear it. I walk out. The effective way or healthy way to do that, if you need to walk away, is to say to that individual, I feel myself getting upset. I'm about to say some things that I will regret. Oh, that almost rhymed. I need to walk away. I need to step away. I need a minute. I need a moment. Okay, right? So that's okay to do that. It's okay to walk away, but it's how you walk away that makes a difference. Don't ignore your spouse. Don't interrupt. Don't yell or use sarcasm. Don't belittle your spouse's opinion. Don't discuss your side of the story with outsiders such as relatives and friends. Because sometimes relatives and friends get in the middle of the relationship. You in a relationship with your spouse, and so is your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, your, her girlfriend, and his buddy. And you trying to listen to the voice of your spouse, but you hear your their girlfriend, their mama. You hear the daddy, right? So don't tell them, try to encourage them not to let outsiders be in this. Don't make absolute statements like you never, you always. Instead, say I feel. Don't forget to pray and seek God's guidance, and don't give up, cave in, or quit. All right, so that's chapter 7. We're gonna move real quickly to chapter 8, and then we will then open up for discussion. All right, so no rabbit punches, how to fight fair. Uh-oh. All right, so mainly, if you don't know the proper way to resolve issues, as it says on that page there, chances are you'll probably act out one of these 4 ways, okay? Because remember, the goal is to get them to resolve the issue, all right? To resolve the situation, or come to some resolution, or come to agreement that they're not going to agree about this, but this is how they can move forward. Ways to move forward. You don't want them to remain stuck. You don't want them to be stagnant or remain where they are. You want them to have resolution. Okay, so the Eskimo style. Okay, the Eskimo style is what you freeze up and ignore the situation. You give the silent treatment. Okay, so you may find out from the spouse, are they giving the silent treatment? Something happened, and all of a sudden they spouse not talking. We ain't talking 2 days. It's been 2 weeks. I don't say nothing to him, and he don't say nothing to me, and we just do what we need to do, but we ain't saying nothing. Okay, sometimes you have that. The cowboy style. I had never heard of these styles, but okay, the cowboy style. You shoot them up and leave them up for dead. Uh-oh. By this, I mean saying things in the heat of passion that you don't mean. So sometimes you got those individuals, they get upset, they get frustrated, they start going off, they start telling how they feel, and before you know it, it's worse than what it was, right? So it's not good to have discussions or communicate when everybody's angry and yelling. Nothing is being heard. There ain't no active listening. There ain't no reflection. Ain't nothing going on. It's just a whole lot of yelling, right? You can't solve anything with yelling. Listen, let's come back when you can say, let's come back and revisit this when we are more calm. We kind of slept over it. We kind of said our prayers, whatever. You can encourage them. All right, Houdini style, avoidance. You are an escape artist, right? You don't like conflict and you avoid it as much as possible. All right, that's called avoidance. Avoidance is not healthy. People think it is. They can avoid it, they can push it down, they can suppress it, they can put it back in their mind, and they keep going. And they think they fine because it ain't bothering them, right? Because they're avoiding it. That happens when people go through different types of trauma. They experience certain things. They don't want to deal with it because they don't want to deal with the pain. They don't want to deal with what happened. It makes them cry, it makes them hurt, it makes them angry. And so they avoid it. But what happens is it comes out in other ways in their behavior. Okay. So avoidance really is not good. It's better to get to the root of it, the cause, as it said in the other chapter. All right. The World Boxing Association style. You handle conflict with your fist, right? You may come across some couples that they fight physically. Ain't talking about yelling and cussing and whatever. They throw up hands. Hands is going up. Things is happening. Things are being flown all over. Hey, people, okay? Unfortunately, if you get in this field any deeper and you start counseling people, there are some people that actually are dealing with physical abuse in their relationships. It happens. It happens, right? So they're talking about the different styles. And so then he goes on to talk about saying prayer. I'm praying about these situations. Begin to step away from the situation, gather your emotions, and begin to talk about it in prayer to God. And not only after you've had that time in prayer with God, you need to encourage them to also begin to pray with their spouse and to talk to their spouse. You know, some spouses, especially, they in the Lord, they figure, well, I done prayed about it. I'm good long as I'm good with God. Me and God good, but you ain't good with your spouse. Okay. I don't know how good you are with God if you ain't good with your spouse. If this is it's supposed to be likened unto the relation, I don't know. Anyway, but that's my take. Okay, so we got to make sure that yes, you may have those individuals that are in the church and they are spiritual and they say, well, I done prayed about it, and that's good. Please pray about it. Please tell them, continue to pray about their relationship. But there's some work you got to do too. Okay, there's some work you got to do. All right. You got to talk to the person. You got to, love them and respect them. All of that, right? Give peace a chance. We're moving on. Schedule time for peace talks. Times when you can actually talk with the spouse. Tell them, listen, set up a time for you and your spouse to have a conversation. And if they can't have a conversation together, okay, let's have the conversation in the session. Let's talk about it right here in the session. What do you have to say to your spouse? What do you want your spouse to know? What do you want them to hear? What is something that you have not told them that you need to tell them? And so you as the counselor, you as the one that's going to be in the midst, you have to be supportive. Now, you can't be biased. You can't be saying, well, I'm for the man or I'm for the woman. You gotta be straight down the middle, right? And you have to give them the wisdom. You have to give them the word. You have to give them the intervention. You have to give them, and you can't tell them what to do. You can suggest. You can give them insight. You can, all right, direct them. Okay, because you don't want to be where you're telling them what to do. Because then if they try it and then it don't work, and then they get mad at you because you told. No, these are some things that you can think about doing, and then you present what you think and let them decide, okay, we'll try that, or no, that ain't gonna work for us. You want to make a presentation. All right, so let's move on. Maintain a positive, let's see what we're talking about here. Give the peace talks. After you prayed and come together for the peace conference, 96, there are some principles you must remember. Maintain a positive outlook. Okay, start off with the good. When you're having a conversation, when you begin to share with them and talking about a conversation with their spouse, start off with the good. Listen, I really love it when you such and such such. I enjoy it when da 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 da. But this is one thing I do want to bring to your attention. And then you go ahead and share what you need to share. You don't come up and just say, I don't like it when so it says, don't start off your peace conference by saying, when are you gonna ever change? When you gonna stop doing such and such and such? Right? No. Let's talk about the good. All right. Be willing to take the blame. Okay. Don't always state, well, it's because of them. It's because of them. It's because of them. Because Adam did that thing. It was your wife. That wife you gave me, that woman. It was Eve. It was because of her, right? Eve talking about it was that serpent. Everybody doing the blame game, right? So it's important for us to realize and to tell these others, be willing to take the blame, swallow the pride, and begin to admit where you have fallen short, where you went wrong. Apologize. Did a whole teaching on the 5 languages apology last session. I didn't realize it was 5 languages to apology. If you don't have the book, you wasn't in the class, you need to get the book. All right. Don't ever underestimate the power of apology. Letting someone know that you are sorry for what you have done. Express hurt instead of hostility. Hurt is a legitimate response to disappointment or offense. Page 97. All right. Your words reveal the hurt you have accumulated, and the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? But express it instead of hostility. It's okay to express if they're hurting. That made me upset. That hurt me, right? It's okay to do that because you want their spouse to know what works and what does not work for them. All right. Make direct statements. Be straightforward. Don't try to hint around it. Don't try to go around the corner and up the street. Listen, go right to the house. Say what you need to say. Tell them to say what they need to say. Avoid the always and never. You always do this. Every time I turn around, you don't never bring me no flowers. You always whatever, right? So don't get caught up in that. Be solution centered. Instead of talking about what you can't do, focus on what you can do. So I talked about that solution focus, right? You want to be solution centered. Seek godly counsel. It talks about seeking godly counsel, making sure that people are talking to people that will help them on their spiritual journey, on their walk with God, in their marriage that is God-centered, that they are getting the right counsel. Okay, so I'm gonna put in a plug there. Yes, it's good to get the wise counsel from those that are godly. If you desire to see a therapist, because you're a counselor, you're going to be someone that is going to give information. So it's okay for an individual to seek counseling, go to therapy, go to marriage counseling. You know, if you're going to be somebody that's going to be counseling couples, you might need to go to counseling yourself with you and your spouse if you're married, just to see how it is. Marriage counseling don't really mean that something has to be wrong. Maybe you want it to be better. And so you need somebody to sit in the middle, whether that could be your pastor, it could be or a therapist. I'm gonna be an advocate for therapists because that's where I am, right? So and that counselor can be a Christian because there are Christian counselors. This is a Christian counseling class, right? So there are Christian counselors that you can seek out. There may be some unresolved issues that you have that you may find are coming up in your marriage now. You may need individual counseling. It's okay. You need to get to the root, as he talked about, the root cause, and work on that and deal with that so that you can be a better you, so that you can be better for your spouse. And so that's what you may even encourage those that you are counseling that are couples. You might want to consider individual counseling because you may find as you're working with that couple that there's some deep-rooted issues in one of the spouses or both of the spouses. So hey, I would encourage you, let me refer you to someone that can give you all your individual counseling, and then when we come together we can bring those things together. Okay, all right, so that's all I have for chapter 7 and 8 for communication and making sure that we fight fair. Your assignment is going to be a video that I'm going to send to you about communication. So you'll get this recording, but you will also get the video. In the video, you're going to review. There's going to be, I think, 10 different types of ways of communicating. And I want you to write about each one, okay, what it meant, how you can apply it to your counseling sessions or even with yourself. Or maybe there was some in there that you did or you need to do. All right. So that will be your assignment. Also, the other assignment that was submitted on Sunday will be turned in by next week as well. All right. Thank you all and have a good night. Stop it here.